environment, et cetera. Are those expected by the end of this calendar year or whenever they get ready? Don, welcome. You may be the chair.
I think I am the chair, and my apologies for being
Well,
unable to log
congratulations.
on.
I'm looking forward to a stellar meeting.
You've never been at a faster meeting, Steve, I'll tell you that.
Oh, okay, right.
All right. So now that I'm here, Tony, is this everyone?
Yeah, Todd confirmed he would not be able to be here tonight, and I didn't hear from Chris, which leads me to believe he is unable to attend.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Pull up my agenda. There we go. Okay. So calling the meeting to order. Pursuant to legislation extending the suspension of certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Bedford Planning Board be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or the comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So, my understanding, Tony, is that the development session has been continued to the next meeting?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
so they both the peer review is not quite finished. And the applicant was advised that we'd be down 2 members in all likelihood,
Right.
so they agreed to continue to September 8th.
Okay. So so we're gonna tonight basically review possibilities for the town meeting, is that right?
Yeah, although you need to actually take a vote to continue the public hearing on
Oh, let us
subdivision
take-
to the
So
8th.
moved.
Second,
Yay.
Excellent. John McLean,
Aye.
Steve Hagan,
aye,
and the chair votes aye.
one
We
down.
have continued. Yeah, one down, moving right along. Now I have to find that agenda again. Okay, we have a whole list of things here in terms of the accessory dwelling ownership options, dark skylighting. So the accessory, should we just take them in order? Is
Yeah, we
everyone
can just
fine with
kind of
that?
go through them in order.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So for the accessory dwelling ownership options, what is the action that's in front of us, Tony?
So the question is whether based on the discussion at the last meeting with the presentation that the Gardner contracting team made, whether you found any of those arguments worthy of you sponsoring some amendments to the bylaw or not.
Okay. Any members of the board want to weigh in on their opinions of what we heard last time?
Yeah, I'll speak, and everybody else can, of course. So I stopped by the development on, I guess it's Page Road 104 or so that's been in front of us. It's a duplex and then there's a freestanding ADU. And you look at it, it's 3 separate dwellings. And then it could be 3 separate owners. However, I think finally, after that, I got decided that no, the ADU should be owned by one of the owners of the duplex. The reason is, if not, what it turns out is then by right, builders could build triplets or 3 units on all the lots in town. The duplex and a ADU that is owned by someone else. So really, this is expanding by road from 2 houses per lot, 2 owners to 3 per lot. And that's when I decided I'd be opposed to it. I didn't quite get a strong opinion, so I stopped by that place when I was driving today. So that's my opinion. No, we should not allow the ADU to be independently owned from either owner of the duplex.
Okay. John, anything from you?
I mean, I'm in general for liberalization of housing arrangements, but I don't feel like biting this particular apple off the tree at this point.
Tony, is there anything else we should consider about this
No,
before
I will say, having talked to the chair over the past week, that he is of a similar opinion as to Member Hagan, and also suggested that from the board's perspective of things to bring forward in November, that this maybe is not as urgent on the board's list of things, and it might need, even if even if some residents were to bring this forward as a citizen petition, the question is whether or not it has a sufficient amount of lead time to be properly vetted ahead of a town meeting vote. So, so I think, I'm not hearing I'm not hearing interest among at this point, of any board members of really tackling this as a planning board initiative at this time.
Okay. All right. So then we can move on to dark sky lighting. Do Do we have the text of the proposal?
Looks like my video just quit, but I can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Are you looking to share the text, Tony?
I'm working on it. I'm not in
Okay.
the office, so it's not as.
While he's doing that, I will make my singular comment, if you will. I read through the whole thing a few times, tried to figure it. I believe we should not apply this to single family homes on one lot at this time. Let it be applied to commercial and industrial and mini unit developments, but not to single homes. Let this be in existence for a while people understand it, and then we can decide if we want to add it to single home dwellings.
John, while Tony's working on getting the text up, do you have
I mean, I'm
anything
just
to add?
thinking that we have a neighbor's light that shines into our window, but it is actually on a two-family. So, I did notice that there's some sort of drafting issue that there seems to, now it seems to apply to 3-unit dwellings, right? There's a clause about uh more than 3, and then there's a clause about duplexes. But I think we accidentally left out 3-unit buildings, and I would actually tend to include the 3-unit buildings in the weaker part of the law, but just because,
Meaning with the duplexes and
yeah.
the,
But
okay.
I mean, not that we allow you to build, not that it's easy to build a triplex in Bedford, but you know, if it was, I'd rather see it easier than harder.
So are you then on board with what Steve is saying about let's kind of tackle the big fish first?
I mean, it's already much less onerous for the smaller units, so I would be inclined to include them, but especially since that's most of the town. And then,
Mostly.
so yeah, I would take a more aggressive stance than Steve.
Do you want to make a pitch to convince your fellow board member?
You have to
I don't know your neighbor. I can't fix it.
Well, like I said, he's actually in a duplex, so
You bet.
it might not matter. But I mean, the bar for small scale residential was already a lot lower than the rest of it. So I'm
Yeah, that was my memory too, which is partly why I want to see the text again.
yeah. And of course now I'm having trouble finding the text. And well, of course I'm not in the office either, but I'm
Yeah.
never in the office, so I don't get to use that as an excuse. Yes. I have to admit my lips got tired reading the sign bylaw. Um Yeah, so section 5, this section applies to all properties with single and two-family residential dwellings where the what was it? Section 4 applies for commercial and industrial properties, the common areas of condominium complexes and homeowner associations, and other properties with dwellings for more than 3 families. So,
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a clear
yeah,
but
but
error to fix.
It's
or we could have no requirement for 3-family dwellings. That'd be okay too.
Yeah. So any luck, Tony?
Yeah, it just it's taken an extra minute because
Thinking.
my normal password didn't work, but I found it back.
So I mean, I mean, I have section 5 in front of me, and basically it says, uh, you know, it can't be flashing. It shouldn't shine into the street or abutting properties, and yeah, includes lighting in general. Shall not unduly inconvenience abutters by having outdoor lighting shining directly into their windows or under their property. And there's an exemption for temporary holiday lighting. So, I mean, the bar for small scale residential is pretty low. So I would, and like I said, I have a neighbor whose lights shine into my window. So I have some sympathy for enforcing some standards here.
Okay, so Tony, is the desired outcome discussion or decision on this?
It is simply whether to, not to make the decision is simply whether to submit this or hold a spot to basically advise the select board for their meeting on Monday that we'd like to have a placeholder for this topic.
Well, for what I'm hearing from the two other board members present is a general positive outlook on it, with possibly a difference of how far to go. So that says to me, we want them to hold space. Is that fair to say, my fellow
Yeah.
board members?
Yes.
Yes.
We have some lighting rules now, don't we? If not, then yeah, we need to proceed with this. Some others I know better than the lighting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It says it's just telling the select board we're thinking about this, and that's easy to agree to.
right, and you could, right, if the board doesn't, if we don't conclude what we want to propose, you can always withdraw this before they close the warrant.
Okay.
Right.
And there is time to resolve the final language because we would have, well, actually, we wouldn't, because it's a general bylaw, you're not the board holding a public hearing on it, but we would hold some kind of a workshop on it to go through these provisions. The existing provisions are a small subsection in the sign bylaw. And there's one paragraph that addresses parking lot lights, but not, very limited in scope. And this, obviously, most of you know, this is a pet project of the chair. And so I think, again, all we need for right now is that this is a topic that we wish to hold a place on the warrant for consideration in November.
Is
And then
that
we work
a
out the
voting thing
details
now?
before the end of before the end of September.
So to do that, do I need to take a vote on that or?
No, I just
is it-
the consensus is fine.
Okay. Okay, moving down to the small clean energy facility permitting.
Yeah, so I had
Senate-
hoped to give you something to work with, but Kylie found some new information on Thursday that I think was very helpful. And then I also had a meeting yesterday with Newtown Council, and so so my staff level proposal is still evolving, and so I don't actually have something to share with you this evening. But as this since the state law takes effect on October 1st, whether we're ready or not, and you don't know necessarily what it it's what the language is gonna look like, but I'm gonna suggest that we ask for a placeholder on this topic. And that's all we're doing at the moment is asking for when the select board opens the warrant on Monday. We're simply trying to tell them that we're gonna have whatever number of zoning articles in it, or at least the maximum number. So,
Does anybody have an issue with doing that?
No,
Okay. So
um,
data
data centers is
data-
in a similar situation where, again, I talked
Okay.
with town council on this yesterday, and we're going to continue to revise a concept that we will share shortly. And given that the chair of energy and sustainability is in the audience, we will also share both these drafts with that committee as soon as we're done, which I hope to be within a week or so.
Okay. Okay, so down to the tree protection bylaw. Does anyone wish to
Yeah, so
speak?
this concept is to go beyond the town tree policy for town trees. This is obviously something that a couple of towns in the county have a similar provision where they are regulating trees effectively either in the setbacks or based on a plan submitted at the time of a proposed construction. So if you are proposing demolition of a house and construction of a new house, or proposing an addition of a certain threshold, then you would be asked to identify existing trees on the property that would be removed as part of that construction, and then negotiate either planting of new trees or a payment to a fund. It is still unclear from the examples of some of the neighboring towns how that fund is ever administered. And this draft does not address that yet. I'm waiting for some feedback. My counterpart in Concord, since Concord has this type of bylaw, we've asked for some feedback on how they administer the bylaw, how many trees they've saved, and how the fund is managed. And my counterpart forwarded that inquiry to colleagues or to the staff in Concord who deal with it, but they have not yet compiled a response. So I'm kind of waiting to see that. Some of you may have noticed that the Arbor Resources Committee was in front of the select board recently with proposed amendments to the town tree bylaw, and that did not gain traction at that meeting. And there were several residents at that meeting to oppose trying to regulate trees on private property. And I know there is differing opinions among this board's members as to what extent of regulation or control to exert over private property. But we were asked to explore what some of the other towns have done, and that's where this draft comes from.
Okay, are there any members who would like to speak to this? John?
yes. Oh, John, go.
I saw John
Yeah,
first.
so I would like to advocate for so there's already a carve out for trees covered by conservation, I would also like to advocate for a carve out for trees covered by the Historic District Commission. So to minimize the number of double hitters people have to go to. It's bad enough being in the historic district and having a non-conforming lot. So I think in general I'm fine with it in the concept, but I suspect it's not something we want to buy. Touch away. So I think in general it's fine, but timing wise, maybe a tad too aggressive.
Okay, Steve?
I'm opposed to this, and I'll make a few points. I will start with one. I reread the existing town's policy to look for differences, since this was also brought up by board. I was at the select board review. Begin with, in our current town policy, there is a fund for tree management, etc., that can get where fees get paid into. The manager of that is the tree warden. It is not Bark. In this new proposal, it's Bark, and which was the same as the one for the town when they tried to present it to the select board. This is Bark trying to collect money from other residents of town, so they have a kitty to work with. I'm totally opposed to that, and I will fight this in front of the select board again, and I'm pretty sure they'll come up with the same answer for that. That's such an obvious shift. Having the town warden, tree warden, manage it makes sense. Having Bark does not make sense, given some of the history. But also managing trees on private property, I don't see it. If a builder is it's like it's a tear down, they're gonna do a tear down, then put a new development of some kind, whether it's duplexes or McMansion, whatever. Having trees on the property makes the property more valuable, and the developer knows that. The developer is not going to clear cut a lot, if there's a better option, because nobody wants a clear cut lot. And then that's something, so I will trust the developer to manage which trees to keep. And number three, Bedford is essentially overloaded with trees already. 21% of the town is conservation land. Besides others, we have probably hundreds of thousands of trees in this town. Where are you going to plant new ones? I don't see it. I'd rather leave the tree policy that we already have, the way that it works. I do not want to get starting with having authority to manage trees on private property. I think that's a dangerous mistake, because that only grows. That's my speech, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
So I don't see where the fund would be administered by Bark. I see that the fee schedule would be made in consultation with Bark, but not that it would be administered by Bark.
The disbursements will be reviewed by Bark. You have to read it carefully and know that this is just what they proposed to the select board.
Steve, do you have the policy in front of you?
No, I read it earlier enough times.
Okay.
If trying to detect the semantics through it is not perfect, but when you know what the intent was already going to the select board, then this one, once I saw that Bark's name was near it, because in the town existing warrant is just the tree warden. That's the only name that's going to be managing the fund. no reason to have other names in this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not seeing it, Steve. I'm looking at the document. I'm
Yeah,
seeing
actually, I'm just going to
fund.
pause. Tony, is this something you know the answer to?
Yeah, I'm trying, I did not, if it reads that way, that was not my intent.
Oh,
Um,
how closely to that it reads, I'd have to go back over and explain how I connected the dots. And maybe the dots may be farther apart for some people than others. I accept that.
Okay, mostly what I see is number 3, Town of Bedford Tree Fund. There is hereby established a Town of Bedford Tree Preservation Fund, quote, tree fund, pursuant to MGL 44, Section 54E and a half. Any contributions collected per Section 5.2B of this tree bylaw shall be deposited in the tree fund and shall be used solely for the purpose of buying, planting, and maintaining trees within residential neighborhoods in the town.
And
I did
that
not,
fund is already exists.
that fund exists. Is that the one managed by the
The tree warden.
tree warden? Well, my reading of this is that's where this money is going. It's going into the fund. And
Yeah,
if that
right,
fund is
right.
managed by the tree warden, I don't see where Bart comes into it.
Well, I'd have to go through this more carefully.
Okay,
I'm sure I can find a way to connect dots, but I don't think it's worth spending meeting time tonight
fair enough.
because it's not going to go on the fall town warrant.
So,
And next time I'll have the dots better.
okay, I need
Yeah.
those.
I think we should get on to other stuff.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so John, what is your thought on moving this forward or not?
I'm not particularly excited to move it forward for the fall.
Okay. All
I
right.
I am generally supportive of moving it forward, but I don't.
Okay. That's fair. All right. Is that sufficient for you,
Yeah.
Tony? All right.
good.
Residential sign regulations. Let me pull that up. And actually, is that something you can share as well, Tony?
Yeah.
And let me speak out of turn and say, I checked with Tony. I think there's only one section that is in red ink that is what's new, and everything else is the same, which makes
Is
it a lot easier.
the residential sign regulations?
Yeah, I think it's way down in it, and then it's in red ink. And I assume that means that's the change.
I mean, there's a bunch of things that are highlighted. I I see a couple red sections.
Yeah.
So what's the larger picture here?
Yeah, you want to
So,
read us?
yeah, so in this bylaw, much of what you see is the existing bylaw. So if everything that's in plain black ink is what already exists, there are just as
Terminology change.
some of the things that are highlighted are technical issues related. If you recall, when we redid the
Yeah.
zoning bylaw 2
Mhm.
years ago, we changed all the terms so that references to either code enforcement director, building inspector, or inspector of buildings all use the same term,
Okay.
which in the zoning bylaw, we moved it to inspector of buildings because that lined up also with what the building code uses. But I will say that the recently promoted inspector of buildings is actually using the term building commissioner. So we'll work out what that is. I was just highlighting these words as something to be something to make sure we're just consistent across the bylaw.
Yeah, got it.
It also refers to selectmen from time to time, or the board of selectmen, and we of course have
Yeah.
changed that as well. So some of those features are for that. And
Got it. So the red ink is
So
what
the
you
red
want us
ink
to
is
pay
there, and then um, so anything that was in that yellow highlight was really just a terminology issue. And except in this section where we talk about prohibited signs, we did several years ago eliminate the limited business district and the North Road overlay district, and they were replaced with the Great Road business districts. So again, that's a
Mhm. Got it.
a technical adjustment. I do note that we also have this provision 9 that you see on the screen here about movable chassis mounted signs are prohibited, but the town has a
Yeah.
couple, so I want to make sure we don't prevent ourselves from having these mobile signs.
Got
And
it.
then, so when we get into the regulations for residential districts in section 2, it really is this red section here that is discussing the ability for the multifamily housing projects that are being developed in the multifamily overlay district to have
Mm-hmm.
a sign. And in some cases, if they have two primary driveways, they could have two signs. And then the discussion would be, what's the maximum size of sign that we would permit? The 32 square feet that you see listed there, 32 square feet is the size of a 4x8 sheet of plywood or sheetrock. So that's where the 32 feet comes from. We're proposing for the moment a 6-foot maximum height for the entirety of the structure. And in most cases, we're talking about trying to do it as a monument sign so that it has a base. Although some of the signs that have like 2 granite posts with a sign in the middle have also gotten some positive comments from the public. So signs are quite um, they're a topic that often get very emotional when people come together to talk about them. But anyway, so in these cases, we are suggesting that such signs have to be reviewed as part of the site plan review, or in the event that it is a project being approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals under Chapter 40B as a comprehensive permit, that it be included in that discussion. So. Um,
Mhm.
So that
Okay,
way the
why don't we-
placement of the sign and everything could be addressed.
Okay, why don't we pause there for a second? John, do you have something
So
on this?
I'm still slow. Like I said, my lips did get tired before I read this whole thing. But so basically, the goal here is some cleanup plus addressing a particular issue that's arising out of the multifamily development. Basically, I mean, it's a little broader than that, but I mean that's sort of the proximate cause
Yes.
of introducing this section. Okay. I mean, as an aside, right, there are some things in the bylaw that surprised me. Like I guess I'm not allowed to have the flag I'm flying in front of my house, but we're not we're not going to touch that, and that's fine. I now that I understand.
Unless- Yeah, well, unless you as a board want to address it, but
I mean, I do at least a little bit, but not so much that I want to muck up the fall fall town meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there, and that paragraph is the primary
That's the
substantive.
primary change. Yeah, it's
Okay,
simply to allow, and then as yeah, everything else is
mhm.
what I'm going to call Scrivener errors,
Well, not quite everything else.
terminology, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
not quite.
some of them are simply modern, catching up with the terms.
Well,
And
there's one, I can't, is there a page number? I can't quite, there's not a page number. And I don't know which part I'm in, but under
yeah, so when we get to
39.6,
39.6,
yeah, that's where
yeah,
I am.
yeah. So
So we are basically saying this, the selectmen
Well, yeah, so this
yellow highlight.
section
Like,
needs more discussion.
yes,
Um, but in my mind, it needs amending, and we just haven't worked out exactly what that amendment should look like.
okay, so are you just looking, what are you looking for from us tonight?
Again, this is looking for agreement to push parts of this, or to push this forward, or at least submit a placeholder.
Okay.
um,
Does anybody want to make a stand to move it forward or not at this point?
I believe we should submit this. Looks
Okay.
good to me.
John? What do you think?
Sure.
Yep, okay. Like we give this one thumbs up.
Okay.
Alrighty, let me get rid of this one too.
I think that takes
And that
us
bring-
to the Bedford. So
340 Great
there's no update on the that's the Bedford Plaza Hotel and some redevelopment of that neighborhood. That the chair said we might keep that on the agendas for the next few meetings while things appear to be happening. And there is no update this week.
Okay. So planning board liaison to boards and committee reports. Anybody want to kick us off?
There has not been a select board meeting since the last time we met, so
There we go. Steve, do you have anything on that for us?
Nothing worth repeating. That doesn't mean we didn't work awfully hard and drop sweat and all that stuff, but it's not worth the time.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, one thing that I will add at this point is the comprehensive plan. It will be ready for public review. I think it might be live today, Tony. Is that true?
I'd have to check to see if it went live today.
Okay.
It will be live by
Um,
Monday.
I think I downloaded it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
okay.
right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so for Monday, when they publish or release the next town manager's report, we're gonna have an announcement and QR code in that publication as part of our announcements that the draft document is out for public comment.
So, as part of that, I will say, please share it on social media. If you have the ability to put flyers places you frequent, announce places you go, talk it up amongst the people you meet, um, any kind of group that you associate with in town, whether it's your neighborhood, your church, your athletic club, whatever. Um, let's see if we can get a lot of people to look it over and give us some feedback because it will also have people will also have the opportunity at Bedford Day to weigh in, but it would be nice if they had a little bit of if they didn't have to come up with a reaction on the spot, which is what I anticipate Bedford Day would be. If they could download it and at their leisure kind of, reflect on it and give us some feedback. So then the consultant will be preparing a memo summarizing and organizing the comments from the public and noting for each whether the response is already addressed in the plan or if it's an editorial comment, and hopefully we will be able to adopt it in the foreseeable future. So it's been a big year of public input. We've talked to a lot of folks and gotten a lot of feedback. So this is the chance to kind of get it over the finish line with kind of a big finish. I would like as many people as possible to feel like they've been heard and that they see themselves and their perspectives reflected in the report. So please do what you can to get word out. Any other board committee related news? Okay, Tony, over to you. Staff updates.
So on staff updates, the gentleman you see on screen, Nick Gibbons, is new to the office. He is our new community planning administrator, and this is week 2. And but he's helping to make a dent in the backlog of minutes, which is not a very exciting task, but something we need to tackle. And as other things pick up through the fall, we'll hopefully get him involved in many other more exciting projects. So this is, for at least 2 of you, the first time to meet him, and Steve has met him in person, but you'll see him at subsequent meetings.
Would you like to take a minute and introduce yourself? Do you go by Nick?
Yeah, it depends on if somebody knows a Nick already. So, but I would say Nick, and I grew up in Bedford, and
Nice.
I want to say I've listened to every planning board meeting for the last 4 years or so. So, yeah.
That's wonderful.
And you still want to be part of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shh, don't scare him
Yeah,
away. He's already
Well,
made it for
if,
2
if
weeks.
4 years of meetings didn't scare him away, this guy's a veteran already.
That's fair. There.
Yeah, I wish I started taking the meeting minutes a year ago
Yeah.
because it's taken me like a week just to do 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be very well versed in everything that we've been doing. So, I suppose it has that kind of silver lining to it. Where do you come to Bedford from?
So I went to undergrad at Westfield State and I did it for planning and sustainability. But I went to Bedford High School. So,
Very nice.
and then last summer I did an internship at the town of Westwood. So,
Oh,
this is my first full-time planning job.
That's wonderful. Well, we're very happy to have you. We need every hand we can get. We've got a lot to do. Um, Tony, how are we
Yeah,
doing?
otherwise, Kylie and I are scheduled to go to the Energy and Sustainability Committee on the 17th, partly so they can meet her, and we'll be talking about several topics at that meeting, I think. Trying to think of what other meetings I'm committed to attend a handful of other committees, trying to again promote the comprehensive plan,
Mhm.
and others will be maybe able to kind of review it on their own. But so otherwise there's a variety of training sessions that staff has been going to, or legal sessions on some of these more recent topics, including energy and these clean energy requirements, data centers, and how to interpret the changes the legislature just made to non-conforming uses, and in theory simplifying the process, but it's still unclear exactly how to interpret some of those features because of the language the legislature inserted that is not commonly used. So we'll see. Otherwise, we continue to have discussions with Boston Communities about their upcoming proposal for the Middlesex Community college parking lot that the state declared surplus.
Yeah.
And so they've been revising their concept based on feedback we've given them, and we're still working out how to deal with the permitting process, because the state really didn't really define one. So we're hopeful that we'll end up pursuing a community development agreement through the select board and a site plan review with the planning board in order to get to the point of permitting that project. So the public will have some opportunities to weigh in on how that evolves.
All right. Is there anything else from anyone else?
So
John?
I had a question, speaking of trees. So the Barks revisions to the town's existing tree policy changed the carve outs around the planning board. Do you have any idea why that happened, or why they made that why they
Yeah,
proposed that change?
I'm not sure why the board was deleted from, or is, I don't know if it was adopted or only proposed to be deleted. And I don't know why.
Okay. I mean, I can see the argument, but then they added a carve out for the ZBA in, and I don't see the argument for carving out the ZBA but not the planning board. I can see the argument for carving out both or not carving out both, but okay.
Right.
You might have thought they would have talked to us, but
Okay. Any more business going once? Going twice? John, again?
move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. John McLean,
Aye.
Steve Hagan,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you all for an expeditious meeting.
At least this meeting will be short, Nick.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
From
Yeah, yeah.
Steve. All right. Take good care,
All
everyone.
right. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.